Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Bebo. In this video, we're going to continue talking about simple interest, and we're going to take a look at questions that have us calculating for just different parts of that formula. We'll have a chance to practice some on our own, and then you can check your answers, and then we'll see some more complicated examples. Taking a look at this problem here, it says Hayden invested $2,000 in his college fund. Several years later, he had earned $960 in interest at a simple interest rate of 8%. How long was Hayden's money invested in the college fund? So that final question says, how long was Hayden's money invested in the college fund? We're actually being asked to find the time in this simple interest problem. So if I go through and identify our investment of $2,000, that is going to be your principal. So P is going to be equal to $2,000. My interest, they tell me that I've earned $960 in interest. And then they tell me that my interest rate is 8%. But remember, when we use our formula, we're not going to enter it in as the percent. We're actually going to rewrite this as its decimal form. So 8% as a decimal is 8/100ths. And again, we don't know what time is. So that is our unknown value. So when I plug all of this information into our IPERT, or I equals PRT, again, IPERT was just how I always remembered it as a student. It just helped me to memorize the order in which those variables were written. Do whatever works best for you though. But that's our simple interest formula that I've just written out on the screen. And again, we're going to plug in what we know. Interest was $960. The principal was $2,000. My rate is 8/100ths. And the time I am not sure on. That is what we're trying to find. So with this equation here, we're going to multiply what we can over here on the right-hand side of our equation. So 2,000 times 8/100ths, and that's going to be 160. So we're going to have 960 equal to 160t. And now we have this one-step equation that we need to solve by dividing both sides by 160. So 960 divided by 160 is going to give us an answer of 6 for the value of t. So how long was Hayden's money invested in the college fund? We're going to say 6 years. And that's it for this question. All right, so on this slide, I am going to suggest that you pause the video and work out these questions on a scratch piece of paper. They are very similar to the example that I just did, where they're giving us certain portions of our simple interest formula. Again, I equals PRT. And so you're going to plug in what we know and solve for that unknown variable. So take some time to do that and then check back for those solutions. All right, so let's check to see how you did when you tried these on your own. So as you can see, what I have written on the screen now is the basic setup for these questions. So if we take a look at number 1, we are solving for the interest rate. We also have to make sure we take 24 months and rewrite it as 2 years. So hopefully you remember to do that piece. And then it's just a matter of, again, simplifying what we have over here on the right-hand side of our equation so we can actually do the 2 times 800 to get 1,600. And so our equation is going to look like 200 equals 1,600r. And then we just have one more step, which is to divide both sides by that 1,600 that r is being multiplied by. 200 divided by 1,600 is going to give us an answer of 125 thousandths. Now, this is not my final answer because remember, when we use the equation, your interest rate is entered in as a decimal. So we need to change this back into its percent form. So to do that, we can multiply it by 100, or another trick is just to move that decimal point. We can move it to the right 2 spots. And so my percent for my interest rate will be 12.5%. So that's what you should have come up with for the first question. All right, second question. This one should hopefully have been pretty straightforward because we're going to solve for interest, which means we're just taking the principal multiplied by the rate as a decimal and then multiplied by time, which was already given to us in years. So if we do 1,595 multiplied by the 8/100ths multiplied by 10, we get an answer of 1,200, oops, put my comma in the wrong spot, 1,276. And that is my final answer for that one. So that is the amount of interest that is earned in that account. All right, and then the last one, we were solving for P, the principal. The trick with this one, we do have to make sure, again, the rate we rewrite as a decimal and time has to be rewritten as years. So 36 months would be 3 years. And then we just plug that information again into our simple interest formula. We can simplify what is over on the right-hand side here. So we can actually do the 500ths times 3, and that is going to be 1500ths. So we're going to have 102 equals 1500ths multiplied by p. And then we have one more step to solve this, what is now a one-step equation, dividing both of these by that 1500ths on both sides. So 102 divided by the 1500ths is going to be $680. So my initial investment was $680. And that's it for that question. So hopefully you didn't do too bad with those. All right, so for this last example, it says Alex is buying a car that costs $18,000. The tax rate is 7% and he plans to make a down payment of $2,000. The sales tax is added to the price of the car before the down payment is made. He is considering a 5-year loan with a simple interest rate of 6 2/10% each year. What will be his monthly payment? So this question is going to have multiple steps with it. It's also reviewing tax because we do have to actually calculate tax before we can do anything with simple interest. So that's going to be our first step. We're going to figure out how much tax is being paid on this car. So our first step is going to be taking 18,000 multiplying by our percentage rate as a decimal, so 700ths, and that's going to tell me that I'm paying $1,260 in tax. Now, again, just like in previous videos about tax, you could actually solve this part in one step, right? We can take 18,000 multiplied by 1 and 700ths, but we're just going to go ahead and solve it into like we're doing right now. So the total cost of the car then is going to be the 18,000 plus the 1,260. And so the grand total of that will be 19,260. So that's the cost of the car. So Alex is going to put down a down payment of $2,000. So step 2 is to figure out, okay, well, how much do I have left to pay after that down payment? So we're going to take 19,260, subtract the $2,000 down payment, and we end up with $17,260. So that is going to be my principal. That is how much you have left to pay after the down payment. So this is what we're going to use in our simple interest formula because, again, this is actually going to be the value of P. That's our principal. All right, so moving into that step. So again, I equals PRT. We don't know the amount of interest that we're paying. That's what we're trying to figure out. We do know that the principal is what I have left to pay after I put the down payment on there. So $17,260 is what I have left. My interest rate is 6 2/10% each year. So that was back in the problem here. And so rewriting that as a decimal, that is going to be 62 thousandths, so 0.062. And then we're going to multiply that by the time. They do have that written in word form in this problem. So the 5-year loan, that is the amount of time. So we're going to multiply by 5. And then we're going to multiply that all out. And we're going to find that the amount of interest is going to be $5,360.60. So that's how much interest I'm paying over the course of 5 years for this vehicle. So to figure out the total amount that we're paying, because again, that answer we just got on part 3 or step 3 to this problem is just the amount of interest. We still owe the $17,260 plus that interest. So the next step to figure out how much we have to pay, so the total to pay for this vehicle is going to be the $17,260 that you had left to pay after the down payment plus the amount of interest that you are paying over those 5 years. So adding those two amounts together is going to give us a grand total of $22,620.60. So that is how much we owe for this vehicle, including interest. And also, again, going back to that first step, we had to include tax as well. Now, this is not my final answer because the final question said, what will be his monthly payment? So going back to the fact that we have this 5-year loan, we need to figure out how many months are in 5 years. So the math behind that, we're going to do 5 times the fact that there are 12 months in a year, and that's going to tell me that there are 60 months. So that is how long it's going to take me to pay off this vehicle. So we're going to take $22,620 and 60 cents, divide that by 60. This is going to tell me my monthly payment. And so my monthly payment is going to be $377.01. And that's it for that question.